Issue 217. We start out in media res with Sonic fighting Bunny, and we fortunately immediately cut back to the past explaining how things turned out like that. They're heading to Sandblast City to answer their call for help, with Bunny complaining about doing so and Sonic reasoning that they're the best ones for the job. I like that Bunny asks how Tails took to being left behind, and that Sonic said he wasn't thrilled. Sonic had explained to Tails that if something happens to him, the team back home will need someone experienced to lead them, except Sally's the leader, and nothing's happening to her on this mission. So where'd that come from? I mean, Tails isn't experienced. Also, Bunny looks weird in this panel. She looks like just a head with a hand growing out of the side. Sonic says that Tails felt better because of what he had said to him, and they spot the city, and suddenly, Bunny's cybernetics get surrounded by electricity and she seems to zip off as if she's being controlled. But Sonic fights the guys here and says that they knocked her out of the air instead. Even though it would have been kinda interesting if that was the Iron Queen. Jack denies doing this while bitching about Sonic being the one coming to help despite how capable he is. And then someone working for Jack laughs that an energy field probably knocked Bunny out of the sky and didn't injure her from her crashing to the ground for some reason. I guess she was caught in a giant net or a bunch of foam. Jack cruelly tells someone to slap the person who said that just because he disobeyed his order to not talk, and he explains that the bear built them some EMP beacons around the city, which keeps the Dark Egg Legion away if their shield goes down. Jack says that something fell from the sky and the Legion grabbed it and ran, and he says that while she's been captured, he and his friends would agree to rescue her if Sonic helped them with something. Sonic agrees to their goal to take over Eggman's base, and Jack's friends laugh evilly right in front of him because they're transparently written villains. Jack says that Bunny will be in fine company anyways. He then complains that when the Robians in Sandblast City got deroboticized by the BEM, the Sandblasters were kind enough to take them in, only for them to go running back to Eggman so that they could be legionized. Which is weird since they didn't remember being robots, so why would they grow to miss the benefits of having metal parts? Jack complains that now the former Robians run an oil ocean refinery, which Sonic has to help them win back. Bunny wakes up lying on top of the sheets of a bed instead of actually in the bed for some reason, and she immediately gets mad at some Legionnaires. One of them tells her in a panic that they were ordered to rescue her when she fell from the sky, and before Bunny can attack anyone, not being grateful at all, she gets stopped when a rabbit she knows, the Baron, tells her to stop, saying she's among friends and calling her sweetheart. He also has a cyborg arm. Bunny hugs her uncle immediately, with the two saying that they never thought they'd see each other again. I hate his name, it's too long and hard to remember. I'm probably just gonna call him the Baron. Her uncle then shows his complete ignorance by assuming that Bunny's a Legionnaire when 1, I thought her being a freedom fighter would be common knowledge, and 2, cyborg or not, she'd still have to wear the black cloak, making it obvious if she was a Legionnaire. Her uncle asks to talk to her in private. I love that we get to see one of Bunny's family members, by the way, and I especially love that it's an uncle instead of yet another group of nagging parents. Surprisingly, her uncle tells Bunny that he's proud of her for becoming a freedom fighter, and asks if people started calling her Rabot when it's pronounced Rabot instead, saying that he gets that all the time. Annoyingly, Bunny doesn't answer one way or the other, and instead avoids the question, saying that she changed her name to Antoine's last name by this point. I guess that solves that problem. Her uncle is happy she got married, but complains that Antoine's last name is the family name of the soldiers bent on protecting the people he calls his oppressors. How are they oppressors when they don't do anything to the Sandblast City at all? Instead of questioning what the hell that means, Bunny just says that Antoine's a good man, and her uncle fortunately relaxes, despite saying that with them being on opposite sides, they can't keep the peace for long. The uncle explains that legionization isn't all bad, it fixed his bad knee. Makes sense that he'd be happy about that, and Bunny says that she's serious even though he clearly wasn't joking. He walks outside with Bunny to explain himself further, and as Bunny sees a heartwarming sight of one of the Legionnaires holding another one that's carrying something, Bunny's uncle explains that when the former Robians tried to make peace with the Sandblasters and settle a bit before trying to go home, they showed them no mercy. I know I shouldn't have believed they took them in, but it just makes no sense whatsoever that they continue to hate them after they stopped being robots. Hating robots trying to kill you makes sense, but when they're not scary looking robots anymore, continuing to hate them when they don't even look anything like they used to is just stupid. It's very hard for me to swallow that. It feels kind of like arbitrary conflict to justify this. I mean, they could have just been captured by Eggman, like, on a raid to Sandblast City. The former Robians were driven into the Badlands, and they apparently had no choice but to ask the Eggman Empire to help, since the Badlands are his territory, from what I recall. The problem is that it's been implied that the only reason legionizing people started was because brainwashing chips could be put in them to make them loyal to the Iron Queen, and it was only really implied that this brainwashing was applied to two groups of people. The people about to be legionized in the Nanite City, and the legionnaires under Leon Duh. First off, why wouldn't the brainwashing chips be put into literally every cyborg, and therefore Runder's justification here is mere rationalization when he doesn't know he's being brainwashed into obedience? And second, wouldn't the brainwashing chips only be designed to make the cyborgs obey the Iron Queen? Or at least Snively? Since she was the one who designed them. Or was that Snively? So they'd obey Snively then. But not necessarily Eggman, aside from reasons of fear and self-preservation, because Eggman was imprisoned and insane the whole time the legionization process was starting to happen for the first time. They could all just have bombs put in them, which is something Eggman started doing the minute he legionized Leon Duh's people, but I got no indication that this was something he did to cyborgs other than them. So is he brainwashed, or is Eggman just trusting him and his people to obey him out of obligation? Bunny's uncle tells her that while they don't want to protect the refinery, they don't have a choice right now. She hugs him and says that she'll do what she can to help him. Suddenly, the next morning, Sonic and Jax spot Bunny riding front seat with the Legion. This would be an interesting concept to go taking advantage of her cyborgness, which is why it'll never be fully explored. Sonic runs away, saying that there's a change in plans, as he'll rescue Bunny first, and then they'll take over the base. Bunny's uncle asks her if she'll be okay with fighting the Sandblasters since they're technically freedom fighters, implying that for some reason Bunny hasn't told her uncle about her bad experiences with them by now, despite them being in Sandblast City. After Sonic punches Bunny's uncle in the UFO, calling him ugly, Bunny naturally flips out and attacks him. I love seeing her temper be a character flaw for once, even if it's not going to be pointed out as a character flaw, as she attacks him instead of explaining right away. Though there wouldn't be any time as the UFO is racing to do Eggman's duty. And the story just ends with Bunny not explaining why she's against the Sandblasters despite apologizing to Sonic. In the next story, there's a narration from a narrator recounting the day she or he met Cream the Rabbit, as we see Cream scurrying a bunch of chow into a cellar after hearing a loud noise. I'm surprised Cream showed up in this comic. I was under the impression that she was arbitrarily kept out of it and kept only to Sonic X's comic from copyright reasons and Sega mandates or whatever. Maybe it just took that long for them to come to their senses. Not that she'll be that worthwhile, I mean it's not like she can fight. She complains to her mother in a panic that the chow are too scared to move. Make me really wonder how they didn't all die out like the dodo birds, since that's their response to predators and stuff. Now Vanilla hugs her, saying that while she started calling for help the minute Cream spotted something, she didn't get an answer. Snively announces in a mecha over a microphone that he's detected large amounts of magic because he has a magic detector all of a sudden, and he'll drill it for the Eggman Empire because he can drill magical energy now. We all know magical energy is something solid that you can mine for. He says they have 10 seconds to move themselves and their belongings. I see that there's a Sonic Chow here, though it's still lazily the same color as traditional Chow for some reason. Fortunately, Amy comes out of nowhere to smack Snively's mecha with a hammer, using a line she said in Essay 1 in a context that's actually badass this time. Amy complains that Snively just couldn't stay in hiding, and she fortunately attacks the mecha's foot with her hammer, not missing a beat instead of getting hurt by it by not noticing it at all. This alone makes her better than Mina. Amy says that she wants to get to the top of the mecha, and Cream asks to fly her up, even though Vanilla insists that's too dangerous, when it should be obvious that it would be even more dangerous not to let her help. She's overprotective. Unfortunately, and kind of amusingly actually, I laughed a little at this, the mecha falls over on their house, and Amy says, "And I insist! I wrecked your house!" I wasn't expecting that at all. That's a bit of black humor, I guess. She carries a suitcase with Vanilla standing in front of a warp ring with a briefcase in it, and Amy says that it's only right that the two of them stay at her place until Nicole can whip up a house for them. I have a question. Why can't Nicole just create the new house immediately instead of a magical goddess AI being implied to take forever to make it? Cream is being stubborn though, complaining that it's not fair as she has to leave when the Chow have to stay here without their garden. Amy reassures her that Nicole could turn the new Lake of Rings into a Chow garden in no time, meaning that all of the Chow could come to the Nanite City where they'll be actually safe. Vanilla and Cream are really lucky that Eggman hasn't gotten to them a long time ago. I'm kind of under the impression that the Nanite City is one of the only safe places on the continent. The Sandblast City is also up there, and only because it has a force field just like it. This issue is by Ian Flynn, was about Bunny's loving uncle being introduced as part of the former Robians of Sandblast City, who had to get themselves legionized to work for Eggman because instead of not being hated anymore for no longer being scary robots, they were driven into the Badlands because bullshit. It's especially frustrating because at first I made to think that didn't happen and the Sandblasters acted logically, but then the bad writing suddenly shows up as an excuse to make Jack have another bad moment and arbitrarily force the former Robians into their position, when there's no reason they couldn't have gone into that position from Eggman attacking Sandblast City when the force field was down or something, and capturing some people. I also have to really question whether they were brainwashed by cyborg chicks like Leon Death's people or not, and whether they have bombs in their cybernetics or not. Why would they be legionized without those kinds of precautions being taken to keep them in line? Why didn't Eggman tell them about those precautions afterwards so that they'd actually work as scare tactics? Do they just forget about the brainwashing chip concept? You know, the whole reason Eggman considers legionization to be a replacement for roboticization in the first place? Why would he do it then? Without the guaranteed loyalty, he's just making people who hate him strong enough to fight him because of cybernetics. And Bunny's uncle isn't mentioning any sort of loyalty guarantee measures. Either way, eventually Bunny gets into a fight with Sonic because she's more loyal to her uncle than one of her friends and the main hero of the world. Choosing family you barely spend time with over friends. She's not that different from SPO after all. I like her temper being used as a character flaw, making her not perfect for once, as she just attacks him without explaining herself. But since talking is clearly a free action, it makes her not explaining herself feel arbitrary. For example, when she told Sonic not to hurt her uncle, there's no reason she couldn't have said he was her uncle. And the second story is about how Cream and Amy met, with Amy being flown up to Snively's mecha to attack it, just to have the mecha hilariously crush Cream's house. It's charming. I'm glad Cream's in the comic. She's like a little sister figure to Amy, making Amy a better character. Even if her being able to fly too makes it a little too obvious that she's supposed to be Amy's Tails. The problem with this story is that there's no reason Nicole shouldn't take more than a few seconds to create a house for Vanilla and Cream. So there's no reason for Amy to be written to offer them to stay with her.